It's a surprise, but in the history of the modern world, there has never been a communist country. While a number of countries have described themselves as communist, for example, China and North Korea, by definition, there has never been a true communist country. So, what exactly is communism based on the different ways these ideologies are implemented in different countries? There's Stalinism, Leninism, Trotskyism, Maoism, and others which are essentially all versions of Marxism, coupled with various styles of revolution. According to Marx, socialism is a precursor to communism. In socialism, a democratic state controls the means of production, rather than having private companies hold ownership. Instead of competing with each other as in a capitalist society, socialism has workers contribute as much as they can to the greater good, and then they all share equally in that good. That's socialism. But once the state controls all the means of production, the next step is total collective ownership, not just of production, but all aspects of society and economy, including private property. Everybody does what they can to contribute and takes only what they need in return. As I said before, there are no true communist countries, and there never have been. Every so-called communist country is actually a socialist country, with the state controlling employment and economy to some degree. Even the widely referred to Communist Russia was actually called the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. In short, socialism and communism are not altogether different. Rather, most schools of economics consider socialism to be a precursor to communism once the state has enough control over society and economy. But this total control is a major reason that socialist countries struggle to reach this ideal. Corruption is rampant in countries like the former USSR, Venezuela, Vietnam, and North Korea, largely due to people in power abusing that power instead of using it to help the society they control, and refusing to give up that power to the people.
Why can socialism never work? And when I say never work, I mean it's pretty much impossible. But first, let's define our terms. Socialism is a socioeconomic system where the means of production are collectively owned and controlled by a community or the state. This means that resources, factories, and machinery are all owned in common, and decisions about their use are made democratically. At least that's how it's advertised. Now, that might sound good in theory, right? I mean, even some conservatives say so. But socialism doesn't just fail in practice, it actually fails in theory too, and here's why. Socialists believe that by seizing the means of production from those who own it and putting them in the hands of the people, we bring about a leveling effect, eliminating exploitation, tearing down artificial hierarchies, and achieving greater social equality. But here's the problem. Without private property rights, the goods that go into the means of production can't be openly traded since they're all owned collectively by the people. And without trading, there are no actual market prices for these goods. Now, some may be asking, well, wait a second, can't the government just establish prices? Sure. In fact, many governments have done just that. But those aren't market prices, and that's actually really important. You see, prices in a free market system reflect how abundant or scarce a particular good or service is in relation to the demand. This reflection helps inform people about how to use their resources most efficiently. Business owners that make mistakes on the goods or services they purchase or produce can be instantly punished by customers. This system of profit and loss creates powerful incentives that lead to a more efficient distribution of resources over time. What's more, you get to help determine that system based on how you choose to spend your own time and your own money. If you buy one good instead of another, you're actually signaling to the marketplace that it needs to provide more of that thing you just purchased. But under socialism, the central planner lacks this basic feedback because there are no real prices since it's all owned by the collective. This is why countries like the Soviet Union, Venezuela, and North Korea have all experienced catastrophic shortages of everything from oil to toilet paper, because central planners were allocating resources not based off of consumer demand, but government edicts. And this phenomenon is known as the economic calculation problem. It's a challenge that no socialist philosopher, political party, regime, or economist has ever been able to solve. Not because they haven't tried, but because it's just not workable. And this problem doesn't even get into the ethical questions about socialism. Because in a system with property rights, who gets to use a resource is determined through ownership. But if the means of production are all owned by the collective, or probably the government, then what happens if two people want to use a resource for different things? Well, there's only one way to solve the dispute: by forcing one person to bow to the demand of another. So, how do you get in a position to make sure that you get what you want? Historically, in a society where the economy is run by the government, whoever has the most pull with the government wins. And that's exactly how socialist economies have played out all throughout history. Here's the bottom line. This is not some trivial issue that just needs a few more years and the right type of experts to work out. This is something they've tried to contend with for centuries. And the reason why it doesn't work is very simple. The economy is just us. It's people working in voluntary cooperation and competition with one another to deliver the goods and services that people demand. And when you take the people out of that equation and replace them with a room full of politicians and bureaucrats, the results are not just bad, they're catastrophic.
Communism, they change only the mask.
Carrying out a systematic and sustained persecution that permeates every level of the society.
Was abolished. Anyone with this will die of starvation.
The movement is scrubbed off China's.
These atrocities, crime against humanity, torture, and perhaps potentially genocide, is the most serious violation of international norms.
They say that I'm on the road. Maybe I just lost control. These nights keep on taking toll. Find me out here on my own. Keep blowing.